In this module, we will discuss how to analyze modal music by Debussy, Stravinsky, Bartók, and Ravel through the lens of post-tonal theory. As Roig Frankoli mentions, these composers did not necessarily seek to give up the concept of tonal center, but we find that they systematically avoid functional tonality while adopting various modes and symmetrical scales to create a different system of hierarchy around a pitch center. For additional readings, please turn to Roig Frankoli's chapters 1 and 2, which are posted on the Blackboard site under Modulo 2, Symbolism, Impressionism, and Modality. First, we will introduce you to the basic terminology associated with the post-tonal approach, so that pitch refers to the specific frequency or register of a given pitch, while pitch class reduces it to a single integer related by octave and enharmonic equivalence. So as shown in the circular diagram to the left, we use integers from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, little t for 10 and little e for 11, and back to 0, whereby G flat and F sharp refers to pitch class 6, which cuts the octave in half, and then D sharp and E flat to pitch class 3, and G double sharp or A to pitch class 9, and so forth. So given the pitches shown here, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, C sharp, D sharp, we say that it constitutes a pentatonic scale with a pitch center of presumably F sharp, so F sharp pentatonic, but according to this method, we put all the pitch classes of this scale from the lowest note to the highest note with commas in between in a square bracket, so it goes 6, 8, T, 1, 3 to describe it as a pitch class set. Next, we refer to a collection of pitches that contain all 7 notes of the diatonic scale as the diatonic collection. So the 7 church modes are part of the diatonic collection, and there are 2 ways in which we can conceive their relationship to one another. First, all the modes are permutation of the Ionian mode starting on different scale degrees. Dorian beginning on scale degree 2, Phrygian on scale degree 3, Lydian on scale degree 4, and so forth. Second, we can compare Dorian and Phrygian modes to the Aeolian mode with altered scale degrees, so that Dorian has scale degree with raised 6th, Phrygian with flatted 2nd in comparison to the Aeolian mode, while the Lydian and Mixolydian mode can be compared to the Ionian mode, Lydian with altered scale degree sharp 4, and Mixolydian with flat 7. Because the Locrian mode does not fit easily within either reference, it is used rarely in art music from this period. So if you see the opening melody from Debussy's String Quartet No. 1, can you figure out which mode it is based on from the 2 methods described, permutational or comparative model? You want to consider what the pitch center is, the key signature if there is any, and the addition of any altered scale degree. If your answer is G Phrygian, you're right on target. And then if you want to look at the second excerpt from Cathedral Angluti or the Sunken Cathedral, try to figure out which mode this melody is based on. If you say C Mixolydian mode, excellent. Other collections that gained popularity and usage at the turn of the century include the whole tone and pentatonic collections. Sometimes the pentatonic collection is called an anhemitonic scale because it does not contain a semitone. The major pentatonic scale is built on scale degrees 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 from a tonal perspective, but any of its permutation, as shown here, belong to the C pentatonic collection, with pitch classes 0, 2, 4, 7, 9. Below is another piece by Debussy called The Pagode. And to determine the mode, you need to construct a scale based on the pitches found and rotate it until it's in the tightest position within the octave. And so then you come up with B, C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, which amount to pitch classes E, 1, 3, 6, 8. And we call it the B pentatonic collection or scale, with B obviously given contextual emphasis through its appearance as the drone or the ostinato and the bass. So in the next few slides, we'd like you to review the piano pieces we studied in class by Claude Debussy. For instance, Voile from Book 1 of Preludes. The title has a double meaning, or double entendre. So voile can refer to sails, like the material stretched on a mast of a sailboat, or it can refer to veils, like a veil that covers a woman's face. So what is the central mode of this composition? How does the short middle section, where the key signature changes, depart from the central modal basis? And how many pitches are kept in common as we go from the central mode to the mode change that occurs in the middle section? And sorry about the images that blur the next sentence, but the last question has to do with, in lieu of a cadence, how does Debussy generate tension and release in a short piece like this? We also discussed how Debussy aligned himself with the symbolist movement from this period, as represented in the poetry by Ferland, Rimbaud, and Mallarmé, where form tended to be obscured and a dreamlike atmosphere emerges in the music through a mosaic approach to color, chordal planing, and layering of motives. So I like you to think about how the symbolist ideas are manifested in the title and expressive indications in this piano piece, and which modes are used in measures 1 through 5, measures 6 through 12, and how the pitch center is established. Moving on to measures 16 and 27, how does Debussy provide continuity by preserving common tones as he rapidly shifts from one transposition of a mode to another? And lastly, which kind of planing technique is exhibited starting at measure 28? Is it diatonic or chromatic? And what is the mode established in the melody at this point? The last scale or collection we'll talk about in this module has to do with the octatonic scale. In Chapter 2, Roy Francoli explains the properties of the octatonic scale as either alternating between semitone and whole tone, or whole tone and semitone as shown here. And because of its symmetry, an octatonic scale has 3 distinctive transpositions. You can make it start on pitch classes 0 and 1, and it is called the octatonic 0-1. If it begins on pitch classes 1, 2, it's called the octatonic 1-2. And if it begins on pitch classes 2 or 3, it's called octatonic 2-3. Now, if you compare the content of the pitch classes, some of the pitch classes overlap, but nonetheless they are distinct. We are not going to worry about the distinction Roy Francoli draws between A and B, and simply call them octatonic 0-1, 1-2, or 2-3. In class, we'll apply the distinct transpositions of the octatonic scale in analyzing Bartók's Song of the Harvest for 2 violins. And in doing so, I'd like you to think about the following questions. What is odd about the juxtaposition of key signatures Bartók includes in this piece? And then think about the textural interaction between the 2 violins. How are the 2 parts related contrapuntally? Then think about how Bartók uses the octatonic scale to unify the piece, and how the form of the piece is articulated through the distinct transpositions of the octatonic scale used. This slide shows how an octatonic scale can be partitioned into symmetrical tetrachords in different ways. So for instance, if you take C, C sharp, E flat, E natural, which amounts to 0, 1, 3, 4 tetrachord, and you T6 it, which means you transpose it 6 semitones above, and then the resultant collection amounts to octatonic 0-1. The same thing can be done with this tetrachord called 0167. You combine that with its transposition 3 semitones above, or T3 it, and it also yields the octatonic 0-1. The tetrachord Bartók uses in Song of the Harvest is 0-2-3-5, and what you do is you transpose it 6 semitones above, and you also get an octatonic 0-1. And you can do that with 3 other tetrachords as shown here. Sometimes composers like Stravinsky will play with the octatonic sound by combining a major triad with another major triad transposed a tritone away. So here, C major and F sharp major combined will yield what Stravinsky calls the Petrushka chord, as we will talk about in class. And since it does not exhaust all 8 pitch classes of the octatonic scale, we call it an octatonic subset. Stravinsky's Petrushka chord is an octatonic subset. So in summary, here are several points that I like to emphasize. The post-tonal approach is used to explain the composer's adoption of modes and symmetrical scales in a non-functional context. So here we're no longer dealing with harmonic progressions based on 5-7-1 and so forth. A cadence in this context is a musical point of arrival that articulates or punctuates the end of a musical group, but unlike in tonal music, it is not dictated by harmonic means. A motive is a short recurring musical figure consisting of a characteristic rhythm and pitch pattern. And a phrase in post-tonal music is rhythmic and melodic, but not defined harmonically. So please take the multiple choice test based on the content of the slides by no later than Wednesday, February 4th at 11:30 p.m. to get credit for the online reading requirement for this module. Thank you and good luck.